and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And this will be a fun, science-y, tech-based episode. It's a duel episode. We will be pitting the JSA member, Mr. Terrific, against the X-Men character, Forge. Both, semi-obscure characters, but you'll learn all about them later on in the episode when we break down their histories and abilities.
Yeah, I've been hearing you tell me for years that Mr. Terrific is an amazing character. So I feel like this is your big moment to kind of put your money where your mouth is. And I better be impressed, is all I'm saying.
Oh, you will be. He is really cool. Really cool. Before we get into the duel portion of the episode, though, we will break down the comic book movie news items from the past week, of which it's all Batman related. We'll talk about The Batman spinoff series in development for HBO Max, and we'll talk about how Javicia Leslie is taking over the Batwoman mantle on that CW show.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
Just a quick reminder, guys, to please subscribe to our show if you haven't already, and if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by giving us a rating or review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or by sharing us with fellow DC and Marvel fans such as yourselves.
Or just Marvel fans, because who needs the DC fans? Right, Marvel guys?
This show needs them. Otherwise, everyone will just be fast-forwarding through the DC sections.
There's nothing wrong with that. But now that that's out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on social media that we personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week's question was in regards to the news that Evan Peters, who played Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men films, will be playing a mystery role in the upcoming WandaVision series on Disney+. So we asked you guys, what character do you hope Evan Peters will play in the upcoming WandaVision series? And we encouraged creativity. Of course, the rumors that are going around right now are that he'll play Mephisto or Agatha Harkness' son. No one knows yet. But we have a favorite answer of our own to award the No Prize to, and we have a list of honorable mentions to go down.
Our first honorable mention goes to Michael Haggerty, who said he would like to see Evan Peters play Ahab, who's a time-traveling villain in the X-Men comics from the Days of Future Past timeline.
Yeah, there are a few alternate reality traveling X-Men villains, such as Trevor Fitzroy, that I could totally see Evan Peters playing in a sort of multiversal MCU story like this. Michael Haggerty also said that Evan Peters could be playing his role of Gimp Man from American Horror Story, and that WandaVision might actually be American Horror Story Season 10, called Scarlet Coven. But I never saw American Horror Story, so I don't get that joke.
Me neither!
Yay!
Adam Spees gets honorable mention for his answer of Quentin Quire, who I don't know who that is.
He's an X-Men character who is kind of on again, off again, good guy, bad guy. He's a powerful telepath. I can't remember off the top of my head if he's had any relevant interactions with Scarlet Witch. I don't think he has, but I'm not sure that this particular answer could work because they haven't introduced mutants yet into the MCU, and I don't think that they would do that in the WandaVision series. But, like Adam says, Evan Peters could totally pull off Quentin's hair and personality. CJ Kraft gave the answer of Speed and Wiccan, who are the heroes that Vision and Scarlet Witch's kids grow up into in the comics.
And they're twins, so one actor could play both roles. CJ Kraft said that it would be amusing to see Evan bounce lines off of himself.
Yeah, stating that it was funny to see him kind of do that in the X-Men films, like when he's playing ping pong against himself.
Rick Minna and Spider-Bat6 both gave the answer of Quicksilver.
Neil Poling also gave the answer of Quicksilver, saying that he'd love to see another musical time stop scene because those were really fun in the Fox X-Men films.
Harrison Fox also gave the answer of Quicksilver, saying that his presence could set up the multiverse where Evan Peters is still Quicksilver, and we would get to see Wanda's reaction at seeing her brother again.
Yeah, that would be interesting. We know that the WandaVision series is going to lead directly into the Doctor Strange sequel, which is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So they are going to touch upon the multiverse in the Doctor Strange film, and if they want to lay seeds to that within WandaVision and set up a Marvel multiverse of their own, this would be an interesting way to do that. Kind of like what the rumored Flashpoint film is going to do, where it's rumored that Michael Keaton is going to be reprising his Batman role in that film.
Right.
Joel Seagrave also gave the answer of Quicksilver from the Fox films, saying that perhaps Evan Peters' version of Quicksilver could merge with Aaron Taylor Johnson's version to form a new version of the character, just as a way to, consolidate things.
Yeah. Isaiah Bethune said that he would like to see Evan Peters play an alternate reality Quicksilver as well.
But this version of Quicksilver would have Scarlet Witch's reality powers, who tries to get Wanda's children to resurrect his sister in his reality. So Isaiah did a little bit of story writing on his own.
Using that imagination. Carolyn C. said that she would like to see Evan Peters play Mephisto. And I think I would as well. I think that's the character I really hope he's playing. It's also the character he's most rumored to play.
Yeah, if I were a betting man, I would probably put my chips on Mephisto, considering that he played a substantial role within this storyline in the comics. But they could always surprise us, who knows? More excited than I am in seeing Mephisto, I'm more excited about potentially being surprised. Kevin DeLory gets honorable mention saying that he hopes Evan Peters plays Angel. Now again, the X-Men and mutants haven't been established yet within the MCU, so it's likely that he won't play Angel, but he does look a lot like Warren Worthington III.
Jeff Miles Jr. gave the answer of Adam Warlock, saying that would be a great way to introduce the character to the MCU.
Yeah, we've heard James Gunn say Adam Warlock isn't necessarily going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which would be a huge disappointment if they had that huge setup at the end of Volume 2 and then did nothing with it. So considering the fact that Evan Peters could totally pull off the look of Adam Warlock with his, golden locks, I think this could maybe be an interesting way to perhaps supplant Mephisto within the story with the character of Adam Warlock, who also has mystical powers in the comics. Although, given that he isn't created by the Enclave and he's instead created by the Sovereign, he might be more of a sci-fi based character.
Honestly, I think the sooner you introduce Adam Warlock, the better, considering, he had such strong ties to the Infinity Gauntlet storyline in the comics.
Yeah. Our last honorable mention goes to Aaron Paul, who said that he hopes Evan Peters plays Speed, who again is the hero that Wanda and Vision's son grows up to be and has the powers of his uncle Quicksilver. It would be interesting to have an actor who once played Quicksilver play his nephew. But the winner of this week's No Prize goes to Colby Henches, who gave the totally out of left field answer, but one that I enjoy, of MODOK, who of course is the leader of the organization AIM. Now this sounds a little bit far-fetched, but the more that I thought about it, the more I liked it, because we know that there's a whole lot to the story that we don't know about. It's going to have a huge S.H.I.E.L.D. presence in it, with both Monica Rambeau and Jimmy Woo playing a large role in the series, and of course one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s main enemies is the organization AIM, which was introduced in Iron Man 3, that they haven't really done anything with after that film. We know that Evan Peters can be a very funny actor, and we know that the series of WandaVision is just going to be really out there and trippy and wacky, and MODOK is about as wacky as they come. So I could totally see this happening. I think it's a great theory.
Yeah, I could totally see Evan Peters playing off a pretty hilarious MODOK, honestly. And since we know that they're not doing the animated series for that anymore, why not introduce him?
Absolutely, I think it would be funny. So congrats again to Colby Henches for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, so a couple of days ago, out of nowhere, we learned that the Batman film is getting a TV spin-off from Matt Reeves and Terrence Winter, which is set to be on HBO Max. Now, Matt Reeves, of course, is directing the upcoming Batman film starring Robert Pattinson. And the television show, as a spin-off, is set to exist in the same universe. It's rumored right now that it will be a prequel focusing on the corruption of the Gotham City Police Department.
This is huge news. It totally took me by surprise. DC has so many television shows out there right now, and they have a loosely established cinematic universe, but nothing that really ties together between television and film. Now, of course, Marvel has that going for them coming up soon with the Disney Plus television series that all tie into the MCU.
And arguably Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But now it looks like DC is getting in on that action and creating a larger narrative outside of just the film, which is huge for fans.
Especially considering that the film hasn't even come out yet.
Yeah, it's kind of risky, right? It seems to me that this is a huge indication that the studio thinks the movie is of high quality enough that it's not going to, bomb at the theaters, and that this television series is going to be just a huge waste of time and money. They're investing in it.
Exactly. I think it helps that the show has Terrence Winter tied to it, who created the show Boardwalk Empire, which is also on HBO. He was also a writer on The Sopranos. And both of those shows feel like they're really good fits for what's being described as a police procedural based in Gotham City.
Now, that's exactly what the Gotham television show is about as well, right?
Right, and I think that was what was most surprising to me. The fact that they're going to have another Gotham-esque television show after the show Gotham ended so recently. Of course, I think this HBO show will be of a completely different caliber to the Fox series. Now, we know that Jeffrey Wright is playing Commissioner Gordon in the Batman film, and there's been conflicting information as to whether or not he will appear as the character in the show. We don't know exactly when the show will take place in the Gotham timeline. For all we know, it could be like 20s Prohibition era Gotham City.
Right.
Now, of course, the show will be coming out after the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in all likelihood.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, the film is scheduled to come out next year, and I'm not sure that they could put together a full television series by that point if they're just announcing it now.
No, yeah, the show is still in development, but again, it has big names attached to it, so it's a for sure thing. The news of a spin-off series for one of DC's films is super exciting, and that leads us to our question of the week. What DC or Marvel film would have the best spin-off TV series, and what would it be? We're looking for originality here. Any past DC or Marvel film.
Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
In other Batman television news, the Batwoman show on the CW has found its new star. Now, of course, we learned earlier that Ruby Rose would be departing the show as Kate Kane for season 2, leaving the lead role up in the air.
Yeah, they decided not to recast the role of Kate Kane and instead go with a new original character that'll be taking up the mantle.
Which I'm kind of mixed on. Like, why have a comic book show if it's not going to tie into the comics at all? Why create an original character when there are other characters from DC Comics that could take up the mantle, such as Stephanie Brown, such as Cassandra Cain? But we're getting an original character named Ryan Wilder, who will be played by Javicia Leslie from the CBS show God Friended Me, which I never saw, so I actually have no familiarity with her, but I didn't have familiarity with any of the other CW superhero show leads either.
Except for Ruby Rose, actually, because she had that great role in the John Wick film. I wonder if Javicia Leslie has the same action background that Ruby Rose had.
She actually does have a martial arts background. I guess she's trained in Muay Thai.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, I love this.
Sold. But the character of Ryan Wilder apparently is going to be a former drug runner who now lives in a van. Now, I'm not sure how they're going to hand off the mantle from Ruby Rose to Ryan Wilder, considering Ruby Rose won't be filming anything more. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull that off.
Basically, she'll just be taking the mantle as opposed to being given it, which is fine. I mean, when your lead character goes missing, what else can you do?
Now, as we all know, the character of Batwoman is a huge character of LGBTQ representation. The character of Kate Kane in the comics is a lesbian, as is Ruby Rose, the actress who played her. Though I know early on she received a ton of backlash on social media for apparently not being lesbian enough, or people questioning that. And I really hope that Javicia Leslie doesn't receive that same kind of backlash because she's bisexual.
I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of backlash to the backlash itself. So I have a feeling that Javicia will be better received as the new Batwoman this time around.
I'm actually kind of curious to see how Javicia does. I'm really curious to see if she's going to don Kate Kane's Batwoman costume or if they're going to come up with something more original.
I'm really interested in learning if Ryan Wilder ends up making the transition from the small screen to the comic books.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if she did. I think she absolutely will. We're not sure when the Batwoman show will return. I think it'll be next year. So we'll see how it all turns out. I wish Javicia the best of luck in the role.
Me too. But I think that does it for all the news for this particular episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event, where we find out who would win in a fight between the tech heroes of Mr. Terrific and Forge.
Let's do it! Okay, Mr. Terrific versus Forge. We're doing this episode in lead up to our 200th episode when we're going to pit the JSA against the Fantastic Four and friends. Mr. Terrific is a huge member of the JSA, and when we were considering other characters to pit against him, we wanted to take into consideration Mr. Terrific's strong engineering skills. That's essentially his power.
And what better engineer is there than the mutant whose ability is basically engineering? We're talking about Forge, the premier mutant inventor.
I feel like a lot of people aren't familiar with Forge. I think he's from a very specific era in the comics. He wasn't in the cartoon. I don't know too much about him other than, he designed stuff.
I think that he's probably the biggest X-Men character that has yet to make an appearance within the movies or the television shows. It's kind of a travesty because he's fantastic.
But is he terrific?
He's better than that. I don't know what that word is, but that's what he is.
Better.
Yeah.
We'll see. If you've never listened to one of our Duel episodes before, the way we determine a winner between these two characters is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. Now, what's a Monte Carlo simulation? It's a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling.
In our case, it randomizes statistics along a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters that we use on this show are based on the official Marvel Power Grid, and we use that criteria to extrapolate the DC character stats. We've included some additional stat categories of our own, such as range, damage potential, and perception, in order to create a more complete and robust simulation.
Now, running these 1,000 simulations gives us a percentage of wins for each character, and we declare the one with the higher percentage to be the ultimate victor, given that they're more likely to win any given battle. No character ever wins 100% of the time. Comics have shown that there's always a way for Batman to defeat Superman, for example, though according to our numbers, he'd only win at 7.9% of the time. We feel our method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the comic book stories.
And we use this method because it was the least subjective, most unbiased way to determine who would win. Of course, Jonathan and I are both heavily biased toward our respective allegiances, and instead of debating these matches forever, we just let the math decide for us. So there's no fan votes here, and no relying on just feats.
Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations we run would play out beat for beat. I think it's my turn to go first, so let me break down the history of Mr. Terrific. Now, like most JSA members, Mr. Terrific is a legacy character, with multiple people sharing the same mantle. The first Mr. Terrific was a man named Terrence Sloan, a prodigy with a photographic memory who graduated from high school at age 11 and completed college by age 12 during the 1940s. After getting his college degree, Terry decided to become an athlete, easily mastering several forms of martial arts and earning multiple athletic awards as a teenager. Before age 20, he had become a millionaire and renowned business leader after starting his own company. Everything was easy to Terry, so after accomplishing all of his life goals at such a young age, his effortless success drove him into depression and suicidal contemplation. While driving past a bridge, he witnessed a young woman, Wanda Wilson, jump from a bridge in her own suicide attempt. Reacting swiftly, Terry saved Wanda and learned she was in despair over her younger brother Billy getting involved with the local mob scene, run by a gang boss known as Big Shot. Realizing that others had greater hardships than him and lacked his advantages that came so naturally, Terry decided he would use his wits, abilities, and resources to help make the world a more fair and equal place. A mission he summed up with the slogan, "Fair Play," likening society to a game that only works if it's fair to everyone and everyone plays by the rules. Terry donned a masked costume emblazoned with his Fair Play slogan and drove Big Shot out of town as the hero, Mr. Terrific. Terry foiled the plans of many mobsters and conmen before moving on to bigger fare in supervillains such as the time-traveling tyrant Black Barracks and the intangible Spirit King. Terry fought alongside the All-Star Squadron during World War II and eventually joined the Justice Society of America, alongside other Golden Age heroes such as Alan Scott the Green Lantern, Jay Garrick the Flash, and Jim Corrigan the Spectre. Eventually, Terry retired from superheroics to become an English professor at Gateway University. He learned one day from the JSA that his old nemesis, the Spirit King, was planning on stealing a dangerous device from the campus laboratory, so he redonned his Mr. Terrific costume to help stop the villain. The Spirit King, however, possessed the body of Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash, and used his body to strangle Terry to death. In response, the Spectre, God's Spirit of Vengeance, who you can learn more about in our Spectre vs. Galactus episode, killed the Spirit King and damned his soul to hell. Terry was remembered as one of the great heroes of the Golden Age. While the superhero community mourned the death of Terry, his successor, Michael Holt, was only a small child when Terry died and had no knowledge of him growing up. Like Terry, Michael was a child prodigy and savant, despite his older brother Jeffrey suffering from severe mental handicaps. Jeffrey died as a teenager, an event that deeply affected Michael and drove him to atheism. Driven to understand and master the world around him, by age 20, Michael earned 14 PhDs, became a gold medal winning Olympic decathlete, as well as a self-made billionaire when he sold his cyberware tech company to Wayne Tech. His proudest accomplishment, however, was marrying the love of his life, Paula, even though he did not share her Christian beliefs. Not long after they were married, Paula became pregnant. One Sunday, as Paula was leaving for church, Michael questioned whether they should raise a family in the church, and the couple argued over the value of religion. Because of the argument, Paula left late for church, and on her way there, she was hit in a car accident and died, along with her unborn child. Michael blamed himself for Paula and the baby's death, and, overcome with guilt and loss, contemplated suicide. It was in that moment that Michael was visited by the Spectre, who saw many similarities between his old JSA teammate Terry Sloan and Michael. The Spectre told Michael about Terry's life and his philosophy of fair play. Reminded of the difference in the mental aptitude between himself and his late brother Jeffrey, and inspired by Terry's example to make the world a more fair place, Michael took up the mantle of Mr. Terrific, using his intellect, athleticism, and self-engineered gadgetry to fight crime. It wasn't long before Michael joined the new incarnation of the JSA, and he was elected to be their chairman after proving himself alongside superpowered beings such as Hawkman and Green Lantern. During his adventures with the team, Michael met his predecessor Terry Sloan twice. The first time being when the villain Black Barracks traveled from the 1940s to the future. Michael and Terry, along with the World War II super team, the Freedom Fighters, helped stop Black Barracks, and Michael helped repair a time cube that enabled Terry to return to his timeline. The second time they met, it was Michael who time traveled into the past, and Terry helped him fight off members of the Ku Klux Klan. Together again, the two stopped the villain Perdegaton from erasing the JSA legacy and assassinating President Truman. When Perdegaton fled back into the time stream, it caused a time distortion that erased the original JSA members' memories of ever having worked with the future JSA. Michael played a critical role during the Infinite Crisis storyline when he brought down an artificially intelligent interdimensional stealth satellite known as Brother Eye that was activating and controlling cybernetic sleeper agents known as OMAX to kill metahumans under the command of the villain Maxwell Lord. The JSA disbanded for a time after the events of Infinite Crisis, during which time Michael became the White King of the chess-themed UN intelligence agency known as Checkmate. During the final crisis, and with the help of Checkmate's OMAC-infected Black Queen, Michael reactivated a new population of OMACs under his control to protect the last remaining humans from Darkseid's forces. Despite interacting with spirits, angels, demons, and deities during his adventures, Michael remained a devout atheist, often coming up with scientific rationales for his encounters with the divine. His lack of faith was tested, however, while exploring the newly created multiverse and seeing how his Earth 2 counterpart became a devout priest after having a profound religious experience the day his pregnant wife survived her car accident. In post-Flashpoint DC continuity, the Golden Age JSA never existed, and Michael Holt became the first Mr. Terrific after witnessing the death of his pregnant wife on his birthday. In the new timeline, Michael Holt wasn't inspired by a visit from the Spectre, but from his own adult time-traveling son. As the head of Holt Industries, Michael was one of the leading tech moguls on the planet, and eventually entered into a relationship with Karen Starr, who, unbeknownst to Michael, was Power Girl, formerly Supergirl of Earth 2. Power Girl was interested in Michael for his company's research into dimensional travel, and Michael followed her when she returned to Earth 2, where he encountered new, modern versions of Golden Age JSA characters. After Darkseid destroyed Earth 2, Michael returned to his own dimension, where he teamed up with Batman to research the Dark Multiverse. After his company was taken over by Simon Stagg, Michael teamed up with Metamorpho and Plastic Man, who you can learn more about in their respective Duel episodes, to form a new super team called the Terrifics. In this battle, the version of Mr. Terrific I'll be using is Michael Holt, self-described as the third smartest man on Earth after Lex Luthor and Batman, but he's arguably accomplished more groundbreaking science than either of them. He has a genius-level intellect, eidetic memory, and is a forerunner in the scientific fields of chemistry, electrical engineering, medicine, and psychology, among others. He's an Olympic gold medal level athlete and has a black belt in 6 different martial arts disciplines. Thanks to the nanotechnology woven into his T-shaped mask and costume, Mr. Terrific is invisible to all forms of technology and electronic detection, and capable of being photographed or recorded. His mask also shows him readouts of his surrounding environment, including temperature, velocity, and chemical analysis. Information is fed to him via his primary tools/weapons known as T-spheres. His floating T-spheres are controlled mentally and are capable of scanning and recording their environment, projecting lifelike holograms, remotely interfacing and hacking other technology, and they are offensively versatile weapons, capable of emitting lasers, electric surges, and knockout gas, among other things. They can also, of course, fly into his opponents as projectiles themselves, with enough strength to damage heavy-duty supervillains, or act as explosives on command, and they can support Mr. Terrific's weight, allowing him to fly. That's Mr. Terrific.
Does he just grab onto them and they lift him up into the air?
Right, exactly.
Oh, gotcha. Well, Forge has a very different backstory than Mr. Terrific, but powers-wise, he's actually very similar.
Oh, really? He has T-spheres?
I mean, he could if he wanted to. You don't know.
Well, too bad he doesn't get them.
We'll see how this goes. Let me get into the backstory of Forge. Born in the American West on a reservation of the Cheyenne tribe, the man known only as Forge came from a long line of proud indigenous warriors. He was raised from an early age to become a shaman by his mentor Naze, who trained him in how to use mystical energies to defeat the adversary, who was an ancient demon from a realm of chaos. At puberty, Forge's mutant powers first manifested, and he gained the ability to intuitively perceive the functional components and operations of mechanical systems, effectively letting him understand and create any technological device he could imagine. This made him question whether or not he should continue his mystical training, which now seemed at odds with his new natural gifts. Forge eventually rebelled against Naze and his teachings, choosing instead to enlist in the US Army, where he could serve as a warrior like his ancestors. He created weapons and other tech for the military and was promoted to sergeant, where he commanded his own troops in battle. On one mission, Forge accidentally led his men into an ambush, and his entire unit was wiped out. Guilt-ridden and desperate, he used the spiritual energy of their recently departed souls to open a portal to the Chaos Realm, unleashing demons that tore apart the enemy troops. The beasts were too unwieldy, however, and continued unleashing chaos and destruction in the area, forcing Forge to call in an airstrike to destroy them. The missile attack resulted in the loss of his right hand and his right leg. Forge sank into a severe depression, vowing to never again use his magical gifts and instead focus on his mutant abilities. He fashioned technological replacements for his hand and leg and took on a job developing advanced weapons for the government when Tony Stark pulled all of his government weapons contracts. For Earth's battle against the magical shape-changing aliens known as Dire Wraiths, Forge created a few devices, including a scanner that could detect the presence of aliens and a neutralizer gun that could strip beings of their enhanced abilities. At this time, the mutant X-Men member Rogue had been framed for murdering a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and a government official tried to use Forge's neutralizer gun against her. Forge tried to stop the official, but was too late. The gun was fired, and Storm jumped in to protect Rogue and had her powers neutralized. You can learn more about Storm in our Black Lightning vs. Storm Duel episode. Feeling responsible, Forge took Storm to his research facility, and the two developed a romantic connection as he tried to help her accept the loss of her powers. She subsequently learned, however, that he was the one that had invented the power neutralizer and ended up leaving him. The Dire Wraiths then invaded Earth, and Forge fought alongside the X-Men and his old mentor Naze against the mystical aliens. Forge saved Earth and defeated the Dire Wraiths by activating a satellite neutralizer in space that fired upon the Dire Wraiths' homeworld and negated the magical source of all their powers. Afterward, Storm tried to visit Forge to reconcile with him and was told by Naze that Forge had gone crazy and was opening a portal to bring the adversary into their reality. Storm found Forge on a mountaintop beneath a portal, and she stabbed him, and the two were sucked into the portal. As it turned out, the adversary had already come to Earth years ago on the day Forge lost his hand and leg, the day that he opened the gateway to the Chaos Realm.
Oh no.
The demon had killed and took the place of Forge's mentor Naze and deceived Storm. Forge was actually trying to close the mountaintop portal, and he and Storm were sent to another reality where they were the only ones alive on Earth. While there, Storm forgave Forge, and he was able to reconstruct his artificial leg into a device that restored her powers. She used her lightning to power another device of his that used his technology and magic together to bring them back to their own reality. In the subsequent fight against the adversary, the X-Men realized that the only way to defeat him and save the world was through Forge's magic. The team, including Storm, sacrificed their lives so Forge could use their spiritual energy to send the adversary back into his chaos realm. The X-Men were soon after resurrected by a deity named Roma, who sought to maintain order among the realms. Forge then joined the X-Men as a support member and helped upgrade the team's facilities and equipment, including the Danger Room, Cerebro, the Blackbird jet, and even Professor X's wheelchair. He proposed to Storm, but rescinded his offer when he saw that she and Bishop appeared to be growing close. He later joined the new X-Force, led by Havoc, and became the team's government liaison. With them, he helped defeat the techno-parasitic race called the Phalanx, and prevented another attempted incursion by the adversary. This time, he combined his spirit spell with a gun that simultaneously killed the adversary and restored his teammates' souls. He fell in love with fellow X-Factor teammate Mystique, and after the team disbanded, the two worked together as underground spies for Professor X, with Forge providing Mystique with weapons and gadgets as needed. When the manipulated and insane Scarlet Witch wiped out the powers of most of Earth's mutants, Forge was one of the few mutants who retained his abilities. With the mutant race nearly extinct, all hell broke loose when the first new mutant child was born. Cable believed the child was a mutant messiah and took her into the future and named her Hope. Bishop believed Hope would lead to the Sentinel-controlled future he originated from, and so he attacked Forge and stole weapons and a time travel device from him in order to pursue Cable. You can learn more about this in our Hourman vs. Bishop episode. During Bishop's attack, Forge suffered from head trauma that resulted in brain damage and an unstable mental state, where he unsuccessfully tried to restore mutant kind with a device that transformed people into monsters. When Cable returned from the future, he telepathically made Forge reimagine his own brain as a machine, which Forge was then able to fix and repair his own brain damage. He joined Cable's X-Force team and later rejoined the X-Men and all of mutant kind as they established their new home on the mutant island of Krakoa. There, he built new functionality into Cerebro, which would record and store the thoughts and personalities of all mutants at all times, so that should a mutant ever die, they could be resurrected with their previous minds.
Oh, that's crazy.
And that's Forge's history. Powers-wise, Forge has the aforementioned mutant ability to mentally perceive and intuit the inner workings of any mechanical system. This allows him to engineer nearly any technological device he can think of, as well as operate, modify, disassemble, or counter any technology he comes across. This perception is subconscious and instantaneous. He has created devices and weapons such as a sniper rifle that scrambles electrical systems, a superpower neutralizer, a portable medical device that diagnoses diseases and provides antibiotics, a space motorcycle, an undetectable hacking software, a neurosynaptic buffer that protects from psychic attacks, and a time machine. His own prosthetic hand is durable, has increased gripping strength, and is outfitted with various weapons, including an energy shield, energy beams, a grappling hook, and technopathic outputs. His cybernetic leg also has other functions, including a mutant power suppressor and a built-in hoverboard. Forge also has limited magical abilities, though his potential was long ago abandoned. He can still project an astral form of himself and use spiritual energy to open portals and imbue weapons with mystical energy. In addition to his powers, his military training makes him an adept hand-to-hand combatant and marksman. And those are his abilities.
How does he know that his engineering skills are a mutant power and not just him being really smart?
Because prior to obtaining his mutant abilities, he was able to just easily intuit the inner workings of technology.
Maybe he just has like a really high IQ. He's like, oh, I know how that works.
Oh, that happens overnight?
I mean, sure.
No.
Okay, all right.
Now that we've gone into the characters' histories and powers, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not the speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this could play out.
We don't see any rules for this match other than the characters don't know anything about each other going in, except that the other character is a threat that needs to be put down. And they start off about 50 meters apart in an environment that has no bearing on the match itself, because we don't take stats for the environment.
Plus, certain characters have advantages in some environments over others, and we want these characters to win on their own merit without any outside factors interfering. So let's get into it. Mr. Terrific and Forge meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
Quick question, what technology is Forge bringing to this match?
Well, he'll have his hand and he'll have his leg. He'll probably have a knife on him and a gun that's in a holster.
And that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Mr. Terrific's going to start off by sending out his T-spheres that start scanning Forge, and they get readouts of all of the tech he has on him, including his arm and leg.
Meanwhile, Forge is just looking at these T-spheres and already knows everything about them, how they work, and how they're connected to Mr. Terrific's interface.
Okay, so they both know everything about each other now.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Terrific starts off things right away by surrounding Forge with his T-spheres, which generate a laser grid cage around Forge, trapping him there where he is.
And Forge doesn't give a shit, because he just ejects from a cybernetic leg a flashbang grenade that he throws down and blinds Mr. Terrific.
Except that won't work against Mr. Terrific because of his T-mask.
What?
Yeah, he can't be pepper sprayed or inhale any kind of chemical anything. It covers his eyes. It protects him against anything that'll affect his senses.
Even light?
I thought Forge knew this. I thought Forge was able to see all of this.
He does. So he doesn't really throw down a flashbang grenade. What he does is he unholsters his gun, which is an EMP gun, and he fires it at one of the T-spheres, which disables it and breaks the laser grid.
Oh, you think his T-spheres don't have Faraday cages in them? I thought Forge knew this shit just by looking at them.
Oh, he does. Okay. All right. So Forge already knew that a flashbang grenade and an EMP gun wouldn't work against these T-spheres, again, because he was able to intuit this, unlike myself. So what he does is he pushes a button on his belt that causes him to just teleport out of the cage.
What?
Yeah, he shows up right behind Mr. Terrific and throws this bola at him that spins around Mr. Terrific's legs and just keeps spinning and just keeps wrapping around him over and over again until Mr. Terrific is trapped in this cable cocoon.
Okay, but Mr. Terrific has T-spheres everywhere. So as that's wrapping up on him, Mr. Terrific's T-spheres get to work by lasering the bola off, while a few more hurl themselves at Forge and explode, sending him flying backwards away from Mr. Terrific.
Well, Forge was able to block those explosions by throwing up his hand and producing his energy shield. Then Forge lowers his energy shield and he points his fist at Mr. Terrific, and above his knuckles pops up this little energy cannon that shoots this electric beam at Mr. Terrific, electrocuting him, and his T-spheres fall out of the sky onto the ground.
Okay, but even if Mr. Terrific is incapacitated, his T-spheres wouldn't just fall out of the sky. They each have their own AI, and they would operate independently of him. While Mr. Terrific is recovering, a few T-spheres fly in between Forge and Mr. Terrific and emit this kind of knockout gas, creating a smoke screen throughout the environment. So while Forge is being knocked out, Mr. Terrific is able to fully recover, thanks to the fact that he's wearing the T-mask and is not affected by the knockout gas, while still being able to see through the smoke screen.
Well, Forge, acting quickly before he could be knocked out by this gas, activates the hoverboard on a cybernetic leg and flies above it.
Okay, but when he looks down, he doesn't see Mr. Terrific. All he sees is, an area of smoke.
That's fine, because he just pulls out a few proximity mines out of his belt and throws them down into the smoke.
Okay, but as the proximity mines hit the ground, Mr. Terrific sends T-spheres over to them because he could see where they are, and they just zap them, detonating them and exploding them, making them useless. And as Forge witnesses all of his mines just get detonated effortlessly, that's when he starts to notice all of these T-spheres around him. They all start to glow, and they all start shooting lasers at him.
Okay, so Forge is essentially in this aerial minefield. Okay, so he starts flying through it, dodging what lasers that are being fired at him and blocking the other lasers with his hand energy shield. As he's flying and weaving through these spheres, he opens up his palm and shoots out a grappling hook from it that reaches out and snatches one of the T-spheres out of midair.
Okay, but Mr. Terrific programmed these things to detonate on contact, so right when he grabs it, his grappling hook just explodes.
No. But part of Forge's power is to know how to counter any technology he comes across. So, as soon as he fired out that grappling hook, he knew where to access the T-sphere immediately upon contact to know how to disable that defense mechanism.
What?
So he essentially assimilates this T-sphere and pulls it back toward him, and as he's still flying and dodging these lasers, he disassembles this T-sphere and repurposes it into like his own personal drone. And basically he turns this drone into a holographic generator. So the hologram is a duplicate of himself that flies around the aerial space, tricking these T-spheres and getting them to fire and destroy themselves.
Okay, well, he doesn't really need to convert it into a holographic projector because it already is one.
Oh, well, yeah, he just activated that part then.
Okay, he knew that.
Right, he knew that.
Okay, Mr. Terrific is looking from the ground and he sees that he no longer has control over that T-sphere that Forge corrupted, so he sends another T-sphere over to it to blow it up.
And while Mr. Terrific is taking the time to do this, the smoke on the battlefield has at this point dissipated and Forge lands on the ground. He ejects from his leg this telescopic metal spear that extends out and the tip is like electrified with energy. And he lunges right at Mr. Terrific and stabs him.
Okay, but before the attack reaches him, Mr. Terrific sets up a holographic hard light shield, acting as a barrier between Forge's spear and himself.
Alright, so Forge's spear just jams right into this hard light shield then.
At which point, Mr. Terrific does a front flip like a badass, lands right next to Forge, and then expertly using his martial arts skills, removes the spear from Forge's hands, and then starts attacking him with his own spear.
Oh shit. Well, at that point, Forge, he pulls out his knife that he had, and he imbues it with his mystical shaman energy. Forge is able to create shields with his mystical knife that block the spear attacks coming from Mr. Terrific.
Okay, but Forge doesn't just have to protect himself from Mr. Terrific. Mr. Terrific is also hurling T-spheres at Forge from the sides and from behind, which keep punching him over and over again and knocking him to the ground.
Well, what the hell? It's like he's being ganged up on. That's not fair. What happened to this whole fair play thing?
Yeah, well, that doesn't count towards villains.
All right, so while Forge is on the ground, he raises up his cybernetic leg, pointing the heel of his shoe at Mr. Terrific, and shoots out a freeze ray that freezes him, because Forge actually really does have a freeze gun in his cybernetic leg.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Forge froze a hard light hologram. It wasn't really Mr. Terrific.
But
The real Mr. Terrific actually created a hologram of himself in the smoke cloud. So now the real Mr. Terrific is actually behind Forge,
okay.
where he's summoning all of his T-spheres to emit one giant electric surge over Forge, taking him out of the match.
Oh, okay. So I guess Forge is just dead then, or dying from being electrocuted, yeah?
Yeah.
Except that as Forge is dying, he expels his spirit and uses that spiritual energy to open up a magical portal behind the real Mr. Terrific that he gets sucked through and killed within the Chaos Realm.
That's crazy. Well, they're both dead then.
Except that Forge has a built-in defibrillator into his suit that revives him from being killed. So Forge is alive after all, and Mr. Terrific is in another dimension.
Well, I guess Forge sent a hard light hologram into the other dimension. Because that wasn't the real Mr. Terrific either.
Oh my god. Okay, so either Mr. Terrific got sucked into the chaos dimension, or you just admit to being a cheater. And we'll go ahead and run the stats on these two characters, and we'll come back with the definitive winner.
Cool.
All right, the stats on this matchup were difficult to say the least, mainly because Forge's powers are so kind of vague and ill-defined that he has the potential to really engineer anything, meaning he could probably engineer a device that makes him the upper limit of speed and strength and durability. So what we had to do basically is average his capability of excelling in certain stats with his tendency to perform at levels for certain stats. So it was kind of a little bit tricky. Forge is an amazing character, but it's all circumstantial. He needs prep time, basically, to construct the devices necessary to excel at his very utmost potential.
So with that in mind, Forge did excel over Mr. Terrific in a number of areas, namely durability.
Given the fact that he's part cyborg and has healing systems.
Right, and damage level, considering he could create some potentially planet-destroying weaponry.
Yeah, Forge's potential for destruction is greater than Mr. Terrific's, absolutely. Whereas Mr. Terrific, he excelled over Forge in fighting skill. Mr. Terrific also beat Forge out in terms of perception, given all the data feeds that he's getting at any given time.
And being that Mr. Terrific is one of the most intelligent characters in DC, he also got the intelligence edge over Forge.
Right, and that's not to knock Forge's intelligence too much because he is brilliant, but most of his engineering capability comes from the nature of his powers. It's innate intuitive thinking as opposed to actual intellectual thinking. So despite the fact that Forge can create devices similar to Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man, he's not actually quite as intelligent as they are. Whereas Mr. Terrific, I would say, is.
When it came to everything else, they were pretty much comparable. They both sort of use shields. They both have a pretty far range.
They both had devices that helped them travel fast.
Right. So taking all of the statistics into account, Joseph, who do you think is going to win?
Forge. Enough said. By me. Of course, our pollsters have more to say, and they agree with me. 62% of our Instagram poll takers said that Forge would win, and 60% said Forge would win on Facebook as well.
Well, we ran the 1,000 simulations to find out, and we have the results. The winner is Mr. Terrific.
No, it's not.
It is.
No.
He won 511 out of the 1,000 matches, or 51.1%. Forge only won 48.9% of the 1,000 matches.
I ain't even trying to believe that right now.
It's true. It's
How?
science. Well, if I had to pinpoint it to anything, it would be Mr. Terrific's intelligence.
But Forge is so smart.
He's gifted, if anything. He does not come to the level of intelligence as Mr. Terrific, unfortunately. That said, it was still really close. Mr. Terrific only won by a little over 1 percentage point.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty close. But it really should have been not that close and with a different winner.
So that's what's going down in the books. Deal with it.
I don't want to deal with it, so I'm just going to be bitter as fuck.
That does it for this duel. Let us know what you thought about the results by writing into us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
You can also find a link to bonus content that we offer on our Patreon, and you can find a link to our merch store where we sell t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more with our Dynamic Duel No Prize artwork. And who are you drawing this week, Jonathan?
This week I'll be drawing Mr. Terrific, because in our next episode, we will be reviewing the 2000 film X-Men. And at that point, I'll be drawing Forge to tie into the movie.
Sweet, yeah, I'm excited for the review next week. X-Men was one of the movies that started this whole renaissance of comic book superhero movies, so it'll be interesting to see how this 20-year-old movie, holy crap, has aged over the years. So look forward to that next week.
We want to remind everyone once again to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing this show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Jace Crump and John Spees, for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away.
True believers.